Hello, good morning. Hey, I apologize in advance for showing up in work clothes, but I felt a strong desire to share my story with you guys this morning. But again, my name is Jason Bach, if you don't know me already. And if you don't, come by and say hi. I'm pretty nice, I think. In any case, so this is just a small piece of my story. And kind of what God has done for me in 2024. So since joining Rooted earlier this year, at the behest of my former LG friends and group leader, I've come to see how God has used my life, my weakness, and my suffering for His glory and for the healing of others who share similar life difficulties and circumstances. To go through every detail would certainly take a very long time, as some of those of you in my former Rooted group can attest to. Briefly though, I grew up the son of a pastor. I grew up in the church, and for various reasons ended up alone and isolated, cut off from my community, and on the other side of the country, looking for belonging, purpose, and a meaning to my existence. To find self-worth and meaning, I went on a self-directed journey. I earned the degrees, the awards. I attended the so-called right institutions, received awards and accolades by my peers and colleagues. Yet all of that made me feel even emptier and hollow on the inside. To that end, I pursued the hedonism of the world, hoping to fill what Pascal would describe as the God-shaped hole in my heart. No matter what I tried, no matter what worldly success I achieved, it only made my heart hurt and long for something more. It was then that my world continued to fall apart, when my mother became progressively sick and eventually succumbed to the complications of her metastatic breast cancer during the very last year of my training. My mother was a prayer warrior, a woman who dedicated her life to God, even when life had thrown her a gauntlet of difficult circumstances. The most difficult being certainly one hard-headed son who refused to listen to her discussion about God. Before her passing, the very last thing she said to me while I complained about the situation I was in, the isolation, the poverty, the loneliness, is advice that I continue to hold close to my heart today as I stand before you. She told me, son, I may not always be there for you, but God will always be there for you. Jesus will always listen to you if you only seek Him. After her funeral, I was angry and bitter and determined to craft my own path in life. However, it seemed that no matter how well my life was going on the outside, things continued to deteriorate while I ran to the ineffective salves and temptations that the world had to offer. The relief was temporary, but my hurt would come back worse than before, and I would feel even emptier than before. I'd given up on God, I'd given up on church, delving into philosophy and diving into my existential angst and grief when a friend from college recommended I join his life group. Through this group, I continue to struggle to know the context in which I belong, the context in which to interpret my pain, my suffering, my loneliness, and my dependencies. I would often go to bed in tears asking God why I had to hurt so much, feeling that I was carrying the burden all on my own. Through my suicidal thoughts, depression, and the continued pain of existing in my life, one that superficially looked to have all the markings of worldly success, I shared my story with my Rooted group this year. One of my closest friends and a brother in Christ from my Rooted group and life group heard my story and realized upon hearing his response that through all of my heartbroken circumstances, I was never alone, and that Jesus had walked with me through the many valleys and dark places in my life. Upon sharing my story, he responded with his own story, one of loss, one of tragedy, stating that through our group dinners, outings, meals, and discussions, he had received healing by hearing me ask God the very same questions that he asked God, and asking about his own difficulties as well. He understood that things that were not previously possible were certainly possible through God, given our similar past circumstances. He felt that by hearing my story, God had eased his own burden through hearing my testimony and stopped feeling alone. And he said that he saw the very same light out of he saw a light out of the very same tunnel that I was in before. It was in that moment that I understood that God had used the broken pieces of my life for the greater glory of His kingdom and to bring healing to others through my experiences. I always sought belonging throughout my adult life in my own broken way. never realizing that I belonged to him. He showed me that there was a purpose to the pain, that despite my woeful and inadequate sinful nature, that it was precisely through my weakness and not through my strength or accomplishments that he was bringing others healing, comfort, and drawing others closer to him. Through that experience, I realized that sharing my story is something I needed to do so that others may see that there's a purpose for whatever it is that you are going through. You just may not see it yet. I can finally see now in hindsight that in those moments that I thought I was alone, God was always with me, and that it was really God's gentle guiding hand, his mercy that protected me in my own brushes with danger and harm. I could not see purpose during those circumstances, but at the other end, I can now clearly see that God was moving, even when I thought I was in the middle of the darkest times of my life. I know that there are many others like me, those that show outward strength, but inside are crumbling and hurting. And that some days it takes all the strength you have just to muster the will to get out of bed. This year, 2024, has been such an instrumental year in my walk with the Lord. I see now that my suffering and pain drew me closer to God and also drew others closer to him as well. I would like to end my testimony with my mother's last words of encouragement, that no matter where you are in life, if you just pray and ask Jesus, he will make himself known to you. Thank you.